Hello, this is Michael Hadley, and this is my Week 8 audiovisual journal entry. I've included a PowerPoint presentation to go along with the slideshow, although short, I think it summarizes very well what I'm going to go over and kind of gives a pace for where I'm going along. So this audiovisual journal is all about public-private partnerships, which is something I'm very familiar with working at a public agency. When it comes to public infrastructure, this is something that is key and is always happening. It's not only something that you hear about a lot about in the media, whether it's from the executive office on the federal level or grant funding or anything like that. It's just growing increasingly popular when it comes to ideas on how to pay for large major infrastructure projects. Not only that, it is something that we will score higher for. So if we apply for grant funding or any type of funding for that matter, if we can prove that we have some sort of public-private partnership buy-in, an agreement in place, we'll actually score higher for that funding. And there's also the perception that it'll increase efficiency. So when it comes to working, having public projects that are done by private partners, there's that perception that there's efficiencies being made because private partners have incentives to work faster. There are challenges, though, that comes with public-private partnerships, and that includes accountability, which we'll touch on in a little bit. The lowest responsible bidder issue, which is a unique one that I'm not sure if it's only to California actually, but it's one that is definitely an issue out here in that you have to give, when you do a request for bids or request for proposals, you have to accept the lowest bidder who is also designated as being a responsible bidder, and that can come with a number of challenges to it. And then the issue of relationships, because when it comes to public-private partnerships, a lot of times the companies within the private realm know people in the public realm, and that's something that can create some issues sometimes for people. We're going to jump into the public administration pillar of accountability now. This is one that's core to public-private partnerships because in the process of being in a public agency, whenever you need a project to be done, you create a request for proposal or an RFP. Then people from the private sector bid on that RFP. As a public agency, you have to go again with that lowest responsible bidder, which has its challenges, but most of the time it works out well. That public agency continuously checks the quality of the work being done and making sure it's in compliance with every code and building infrastructure mechanism that's out there. And then if anything comes up that wasn't planned for, change orders are obviously done. And this is all a public, transparent process throughout this entire event. This creates images that this relationship between public and private is not only efficient, but also effective. Some interesting challenges, though, is that public perception can be an issue. Sometimes when there's new bidders in the process, they're going to have a hard time being the lowest responsible bidder because they don't have much proof behind them. So a lot of private entities are going to struggle getting bids if they don't have a lot of experience on their belt. And then conflicts of interest come up on occasion when people who bid on projects are someone who are familiar with the agency, or they have financial buy-in, or they've worked for them previously. Sometimes those issues do come up with accountability, and those all wrap into legitimacy, which is on the next slide. The public administration pillar of legitimacy is a crucial one because if a public-private partnership does not have legitimacy, it's not going to function well, and people are not going to agree with what happens, and you'll get a lot of public outcry. So there's that public perception that's a really key factor in all of this. There's the idea that there's efficiency and effectiveness behind working with public-private partnerships. And then there's also another idea behind it that working with private partners, there's an inherent increase in knowledge that's gained the challenges that exist there, if, like I said earlier, if anything goes awry or anything's fishy or funny, public trust goes down, and therefore that legitimacy doesn't work out. And then sometimes, actually, within the agency, there's not a lot of trust with certain private partners because maybe we know that a certain private company does a lot of change orders or purposefully creates their bid lower than what they know is going to be out there, and then they just ask for a bunch of change orders. So sometimes there's those companies who exist because we have to pick the lowest responsible bidder. They will sometimes bid low purposely and leave out certain little parts that they'll have to recoup later. So that's another issue that is very well wrapped up into public-private partnerships. And that concludes my final post. Thank you very much for a great course, Dr. K.